It's like Jody.
Yeah, and then Jana.
So it looks like the first thing on the agenda is introductions. So maybe go around the room and introduce yourselves. I'll start. Joe Healy, audit committee member. Been on the audit committee for maybe about a year now, I guess so, and work down in Sun River for the Owners Association, but also work a lot with the service district doing their financials and HR and auditing or that kind of stuff too. So.
Chuck Bailey, I'm the county justice of the peace.
Whitney Hale, Deputy County Administrator.
I'm Erica Crop, also Deputy County Administrator.
Holly Harris, Behavioral Health Director and Acting Director of Health Services for the next 3 weeks while Janice is out.
Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer.
Angie Powers, Administrative Assistant.
Aaron K, Performance Auditor. Jody, can you hear us okay this
Yep,
time?
I can hear you just fine. And I'm Jody Birch, citizen member. Might as well just jump in.
Can't hear you. I don't
Oh, you
know.
can't hear me?
It looks like she's unmuted.
Yeah.
How do I fix this, Angie?
I think she had to fix it from her end.
She's unmuted.
I'm unmuted, yeah.
It's like
Oh,
their
really?
volume's muted on your.
Are we muted?
Yeah, see that little speaker at the bottom by the.
Oh.
By the time that.
That's getting far up.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, go
That
ahead.
better?
There we
There you
go.
go.
Okay, yay.
Good on
Yes,
our
I can hear you.
end. Great, thank you. While you're there, Jody, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, so I'm Jody Birch. I'm a citizen member of the committee, so.
I'm Elizabeth Pape. I'm the new county auditor. This is my first audit committee meeting, so I'm excited to be here.
Bill Coon, Chief County Treasurer.
Patty Jared, Deschutes County Commissioner.
Dave Gibbons, former county internal auditor.
And Jana. That's a good name, right?
She's also working, she's working with the auditors this
Oh.
week, so she's dual duty right now. The controller and.
I met the auditors yesterday out in Sun River, so. Great, and then, so I guess the next thing, if there's any additions to the agenda that are not on here, anybody have anything? Going on, yes. And then the minutes from 6/9 for approval. I was not here, so if there are any changes or corrections on the minutes?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second,
Oh, second.
all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? It's easy.
Got it done.
Alright, the next, the internal audit report, behavioral health process improvements. Aaron?
Yeah. And I'll go there. Share my screen. Sorry, but Zoom has really been delayed and finicky this afternoon. There we go. Got it, Jody? Thank you. All right. So a little bit of background on this. David had some prior work for health services back in 2014 in the department that kind of raised some questions around staff productivity that nagged on him for a while. And so it became an audit topic on the prior audit plan and also led us to our audit objectives. So before I go any further, just want to thank Holly and Janice for their unending support throughout the whole process. They were on board with the project from the start and very excited to see where the audit took us. They were just great partners in all of this. So if you have any need to jump in at any time and provide some additional background or input as I'm going through these topics. Just feel free to jump in anytime, Holly. So the goal of the audit was basically to look at the folks that were high performing and see if they were doing anything special, if there was any magic in what they were doing that then could be translated to kind of throughout the whole department, kind of, you know, the high tide that raises all boats, so to speak. And then we also simultaneously were looking at the system, with which the clinicians were being measured on their productivity to see if that was effective and accurate. So the results kind of fell into these same two areas, covering the 9 findings or 9 recommendations. So the first one basically was when we first did the kind of recalculation of service hour tool, which is what the department uses to calculate a majority of staff's productivity. We're kind of befuddled with the fact that what we thought would be calculated and measured would be like the light blue, right? The majority of their work would be what was meaningful. But when you put the labels on, what was actually being captured and meaningful were these last smaller slices. So it was just like, well, what's going on there? And so it kind of led us to kind of dive in a little bit deeper. So what we kind of came to was the fact that just the tool itself isn't really working as intended. The measure itself isn't capturing and isn't showing what the actual work is. So the department does have some other great performance measures, especially around outcomes. There's 2 examples of where the measure really aligns with the goal of the department and the goal of the work. So the recommendation is basically just to kind of re-envision productivity for clinicians and think about how to best align clinician work with the goals of each team or the department as a whole. The next one, again, about kind of surrounding the service hour tool. One of the methods that we use to kind of inform ourselves about what clinician were doing throughout the day was do a time study. And that time study kind of revealed that what the work that they were doing was 3/4 of their work was actually client care, but the service hour tool was only reflecting about 1/4 of their work in client care. And so it was a really disproportionate amount. And so there was questions around the accuracy of that tool as well and what it was capturing.
Yeah, and I'll just add to this. I mean, I think the time study was great because what we anecdotally hear constantly from clinicians and staff is how busy they're working on behalf of clients, and that Epic wasn't always reflecting all of the details of that work. And there's lots of really, really valid reasons why that is. And I think, you know, the measures we had set up years ago to measure productivity for staff were really based in a time when our work looked a little bit different. It was prior to being a CCBHC. It's prior to sort of the explosion of sort of the aid and assist population and the amount of pre-engagement work that we're required to do. So the EPIC data, our DHR system, really is about billable services. It's about people who are enrolled in services, coming to appointments regularly, showing up, and we're doing fee for service. And that productivity measure for something like that looks great, but that's not really our reality anymore. So I think that what the audit really revealed to us, it's time to re-envision how we measure this based on the way the work looks now.
One of the other pieces within that measurement system that they were using is kind of this caseload distribution. It's how cases are kind of assigned and distributed through the teams. And we found a real disparity in some of the teams between the highest and the lowest caseloads for clinicians. Some of them, like CSS, for example, have kind of very stable cases. There's not a lot of turnover within those clients. So it's kind of easier to manage. Whereas the adult outpatient, you know, the department cannot say no to anybody that is seeking care that fits the eligibility criteria. And so there's kind of like this just never ending faucet that never turns off. And so you need to have good controls around that in order to ensure that the people are coming into care as quickly as possible and then exiting care when it's needed as quickly as possible. And so the way that those controls were functioning just kind of created this disproportionate amount. And as well as, higher productivity folks were just, hey, you can handle it. Look at all your numbers. And so they were being assigned more and more cases than some of the folks that were maybe struggling to attain good productivity. So they were getting burnt out. They were working over hours, outside of work hours. We saw all kinds of examples there. So the recommendations were to strengthen the controls around how these clients are coming in and out of care. And then also kind of trying to rethink of how they use those measures to kind of ensure that are being distributed a little bit more equitably.
And one of the ways we're doing that, what we call FTAs, first treatment appointments, those don't really have any sort of lockdown ability within our EHR system. And so we're looking at what capabilities we might have to not allow individual clinicians to necessarily manage how those FTAs are utilized. They need to be used for first treatment appointments only and not be filled with other types of activities. And so that's something we're working with the HR team already on.
Thanks, Holly. And the last one was just the fact that how the structure of the department is with very specialized areas and very specialized teams to meet very specialized populations of folks with diagnoses and things like that. But one of the hindrances to that specialization is it limits the flexibility of them to maybe accommodate when there's maybe an influx of a certain population or when they have turnover in staff and if there's some holes there that somebody else could fill on a temporary basis. It just kind of limits your mindset and kind of creates these boundaries. We picked on South County in this case. South County, I will disclose, was understaffed at the time, and so that was leading to some of these higher numbers as well. But it still was just an example of kind of one area that could have maybe be thought about a little bit broader.
Yeah.
To meet those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. South County really highlighted this issue quite well. It's they were down. I think we have 6 or 7 clinicians out there. As Commissioner Darren well knows, we've done a lot to help boost up the staffing out there. But for about a year or maybe even more, they were down at probably about 60% staffing. So it was.
Are they okay now?
Yes, they actually
remember we added
almost
more
fully
money.
staffed. Yes. They're about to make their last hire and be fully staffed. So the measures we put in place to get them staffed up have worked. So just as a side note. But because of that short staffing, that was absolutely a huge contributor to the delay in first treatment appointment timeframes out there. And what we weren't able to do is, pull from other areas of the organization because South County is one of those hubs that serves all ages. And so the population we serve, the lifespan. But we're not serving just like the general population lifespan. We're serving the most acute in each of those areas of the lifespan. So to have a specialty, to have knowledge and skill set to serve a 4-year-old that's having severe emotional disturbance, or an older adult that has dementia and schizophrenia, not anybody can do that. And so what the audit highlighted is let's try to expand the skill set. We have a training through consultation model that we already have in place that we're going to enhance to help develop skill sets for those that are interested. You don't want to throw a clinician into doing work that they don't feel comfortable doing and don't have the skills to do. That doesn't help anyone. But I think for those that are willing and interested and want to grow and develop, which many do, that's a good one to address this issue.
So I've kind of beat up the system to death now, so we're going to pivot to just opportunities to increase productivity as a whole throughout the division. The number one way that I saw was just the technology, that Epic system. It's robust. It's got some great features to it that they're using kind of on a limited basis, or on a good basis, but maybe not throughout the whole division. There's a lot of clinicians that were using these smart phrases, which basically is just pre-formatted text that fills in kind of your client interaction. Just cuts down on just the free typing and just having to and also the clinicians have to relive that interaction with a person that had, extreme trauma or is going through something, so they kind of have this secondary trauma by just revisiting that and writing out that note. And so to use a smart phrase where you're literally just using drop downs or clicking through some buttons to kind of just get a clinical documentation at a level that's just required with some extra things to make sure it's individualized for that person that you saw. That was one way that clinicians are currently using, but they were only using it within their team. It wasn't being shared with anybody else outside of their immediate coworkers. So the idea was then to use the division or department and then make a library, like just a comprehensive library, gather all these great smart phrases and smart tools that are already being used everywhere, and then make them available and train people on what they are and how to use them, how it can help their job and how it can be applied. So
We're very excited about this recommendation. We love this one. We're very supportive, obviously. The challenge with doing it in the past has been, the OARs really require that you individualize every note. The compliance piece of this, you can't just have a template, you have to individualize it. So there's some training that will come with it to make sure we stay in compliance with OARs, but also have some efficiencies. And I do believe there's a way to do both, and the audit report will help us get there.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things, was having the audit team there to make sure that the compliance piece was still being worked on, and then have all the clinicians that already had these great ideas to kind of just merge all those ideas together. Go ahead, Eric.
Can you give us an example of how that tool works?
Yeah, so basically in Epic, there's what we call dot phrases. And so you can create a dot phrase that has, like, say, for instance, you drive a client to an appointment each week. Like, you could have in there, drove a client to such and such appointment, and then you can put you could add like what maybe the individual piece of that particular session or that particular intervention that was unique to that day. But like the basics that are like pretty consistent each week or each time can be templated. So you don't have to retype all that every single time. The challenge is if you get lazy with that, then that just becomes a template, and then every note looks the same, and then what you're considered cloning, or not, and that's a violation of OERs, and we would get deemed in a specific source audit or OHA audit for that. So I think what we need to work on is just developing the library, but then also developing training to go along with that, and our own internal auditing that will make sure we're individualizing each of those templates. But they're really easy to use, and the highest producers in our organization are using them quite effectively, are passing their data integrity audits at a high level.
Yeah.
Because you looked at that when you were doing your audit as well, so it can be done.
Yeah, and some of them I was just blown away. I mean, they were very comprehensive, where they were pulling down, what the appearance of the people were within just some simple checkboxes, and then what they were demonstrating as far as their illness at that time. And so it was amazing. I was literally floored by the complexity within these kind of pre-formatted, templates, but the fact that you could add so much individualization to them to really reflect what was being seen by the therapist. So yeah, it was excellent. The next one, the onboarding procedures. Again, Epic is awesome. Epic has some great things, but it's also very overwhelming. There's a lot of functionality, a lot of features to it. And half of the folks that we talked to said that it was just a little overwhelming. They were getting too much information all at once without knowing exactly how it fit into the daily work. And so kind of maybe a little bit more direct supervision and job shadowing was also reported. So having that piece where we slow down a little bit, do a little bit more behind the scenes stuff to where they can see how Epic fits into their work cycle and how maybe gain some familiarity with the system before then you train on these really great features of it. It was just one of the supervisors having a great little mantra, and it was go slow to go fast, right? To slow down the onboarding just a hair, so then they can hit the ground running once they start getting a full caseload. The other piece that I always kind of pick on is the evaluations. The 2-month evaluations were used fairly low since 2019. Evaluations in my eyes are a great way to engage employees in a formal way to kind of provide that feedback in both directions to the supervisor and to the employee to see how they're doing, kind of a touch in. I just think they're a great way for also to improve retention. And I see that as a tool, so.
Can you, is that evaluations of the write-ups of the documentation?
No,
or
this is the-
employee performance evaluation?
This is the two-month employee performance evaluations, yeah, which are optional. It's optional at the county, it's optional at health, but I'm a big proponent.
And I think this is where we may agree to, disagree. We don't
Yeah,
agree with
for sure.
the 2-month process to check in and reevaluate. I think whether or not we choose to use the county evaluation form, I think for our services, I don't know that form will get us what you're getting at. I think what we've already developed a 2-month check-in process that will hit on some of these key things, like checking into their understanding of Epic, checking in to see where the parts of their job they're not really grasping or understanding. And so I think it's like a middle ground of like maybe a little bit more efficient use of a form, because like supervisors are so inundated that to do the full 2-month evaluation is pretty cumbersome. So I think we can find a middle ground in there that will meet the need. And then I think, Welcome Week is a wonderful thing that we do at Health Services. It's robust for onboarding. So robust that I think it can sometimes feel really overwhelming for staff. They get all of everything to do with health services in 1 week, and then they get Epic training right the following week after that. And then it's just like their head about to explode.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to reevaluate sort of what that looks like and where we fit in Epic training and where we can add in some job shadowing.
How long have you been on Epic?
We've been on Epic, gosh, probably about 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years, I think.
So St. Charles uses that
Yes.
system,
Summit.
I believe, through BMC. Do you get a lot of support, outside support from Epic in training
No.
okay.
No, so there's 2 different types of Epic. The one Summit and St. Charles they have a kind of the more expensive version that is really specific to their organizations.
Sure.
And ours is what we're part of a collaborative. So we actually are sharing a platform with like, I don't know how many other counties across Oregon, so when we want to make a change or get help, like the whole collaborative has to agree to anything we want to do.
Yeah.
So we're actually taking a look at that too. We're gonna just take a look and see what options we have available to us, because what we need is a bit more flexibility in Epic to meet our needs.
It is very customizable.
It can be, if you get the good one.
At your age, can.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know, St. Charles, when they went through their onboarding process, it was quite the launch.
yeah.
They
It
got
was
up to
huge.
speed on that, but,
So we're gonna be in talks with St. Charles around their experience with that and,
Okay.
what options might be out there for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
And just
question.
to dovetail that too, they're trying to take a medical record system, which is
Yeah.
Epic, which is great.
It is.
And change it to behavioral health,
Yes.
which is,
It's tricky.
it's
There's-
very, very tricky.
Yeah.
probably doesn't fit very well.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the
Yeah.
medical model really is very easy. Like people can just, click in for appointments. You just you enter your note, you're done. We have a lot of extra requirements that the medical community does not have in terms of assessment processes, service plans, all of these extra pieces that Epic we're kind of shoving in there to work for us. And it's added a lot of extra clicks. It adds
Mhm.
hours to the documentation process for clinicians, and it absolutely contributes to everything in this audit report.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
how was Epic picked a while ago?
Yeah, we went through, a process to look at all the different ones. Epic is kind of
Don't-
the one that most places are using, and the benefit of using one that other places use is you can talk to each other and you can see other people's notes and share information much easier. And so particularly locally, the fact that St. Charles and Summit and Mosaic is on it as well, like that, those are our key partners. So to share a platform makes our life significantly easier in that way and better for client care. And there's not a lot of, there's a handful of other ones out there that other places use, but I haven't heard anybody screaming from the rooftops about how amazing it is for behavioral health. So I think there's room for development there, but someone.
So the Department Division has a great intern program there. A lot of the folks, they've been going through a lot of turnover, so a lot of the folks that I talked to were prior interns there. They're not currently tracking the numbers as far as how many interns end up being full-time employees. That's something I think they were
We are
starting or
too,
thinking, yeah. But very great program. But the downfall of it was that the clinicians that were being assigned these supervision duties for interns didn't get any adjustment to their productivity measures to kind of reflect the fact that they're getting this additional duties. And then the policy as it was stated was basically that supervisors were supposed to, or leads were supposed to be supervising these folks, and it didn't quite give the latitude there for just regular clinicians. So it was just matching the practice with the policy. It was kind of the recommendation there, just to kind of clarify things.
Yep, and we should have that policy. We have a draft going right now, and it should be finalized here in the next month. And then we're also adding to kind of compensate individuals for the taking on supervision, which is a huge liability concern and huge extra workload for folks. We have a stipend program that through our workforce incentive dollars that we'll be able to offer for people to voluntarily take. We don't require that anybody take an intern. It's all usually they want to take an intern because it's enjoyable, but it's also a lot of work.
Yeah. Finally, the availability of vehicles specifically to this downtown Bend location for the clinics here locally can be an obstacle for some. So they had over 80% utilization of the vehicles that were available here, but they've also grown in this area at 30%. And the vehicles haven't matched quite to that staffing level because we don't have any parking down here.
There's no point buying a vehicle.
No point in buying it. You don't have anywhere to park it. And it's the utilization doesn't really reflect the fact that they need to buy more cars either. So my thought, kind of out of the box, was to create kind of a downtown motor pool for those departments that are willing to kind of throw in their cars into kind of a floating motor pool that could then be used by anybody that needs it, kind of. And Fleet has been kind of thinking and toying about this. It's been in their policy. The fleet management policy is kind of a strategy to offset some of these short-term needs. As having a motor pool and kind of having a location-based motor pool would lend itself to this audit specifically. It just provides a way to kind of add cars without adding cars, so to speak. If we have other cars from other departments that are willing to kind of throw in there. It just makes the availability of those cars easier, and the tracking and everything else, the software is caught up to where the accounting and the accountability of the folks driving it is a lot higher. So there'll be some initial cost associated with that, but it would definitely free up an obstacle that's there.
So I have a question. Where are these people driving to?
Client appointments, they're
Client
picking up
appointments,
clients,
yeah.
they're driving clients to appointments, they're driving to community partner meetings. I mean, these are teams that are community based.
Okay, but we're talking about at least two people, right?
We're in a car with, no, not always, no.
No. Okay, so
No.
I just met with Kobo the other day and they actually said they have their own behavioral health person on their staff of 12 or 13, whatever was at the table that day. And I'm just wondering, are we going to the Veterans Village at all on a regular basis?
I have to check with teams. I'm sure that we're out there. I mean, we go to almost every community based location where there's a behavioral health client.
We are though?
I mean, I have to check with you to confirm for sure, but I
Okay.
mean, if there's a client of ours out there, we certainly are.
Okay, so do they have to be a client before they move in, or can they become a client after
the
they?
answer to that, actually. I don't.
I know, I was kind of surprised when I was asking these
I don't think
questions.
so.
And then I was at the navigation center this morning, and how many hours a week does Deschutes County have people at the navigation center?
We just
I heard
hired.
somebody is there for 40 hours and then somebody else was there for 4 hours, but we have 269 employees, so I'm just wondering where, because there's 100 people at the navigation at the
Yeah.
lighthouse.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, and I'm just going, are we adequately serving those people? They
Well-
weren't complaining, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's always need for more people to serve the navigation center. I think our host team would be the first to say that. I mean, they're out there as much as they're able to be out there. They have to serve the entire county. So I know they do drop in hours out there several times a week. And they also just hired a case manager through, I can't remember which train it was, but that's dedicating time to the lighthouse.
Somebody's there for 40
Yeah,
hours, but
yeah.
it's just one person.
Yeah, I think his name's Gary. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's all we have the money for, to have embed somebody over there for me. I think we got it through a grant. Yeah, so that's, I mean, we'd love to support those agencies as much as we're able to. But we only have so many staff to cover the entire county.
Right. Yeah, I would just be curious to know what's happening at the Veterans Village because their program is working.
Yeah, it's great.
And they've just graduated their 15th person. I think that's phenomenal. But I'm just wondering, okay, how much are we there? I know they're right around the corner from the stabilization center. So
I
I'm
know
sure they
those staff
utilize
are-
it
Yeah,
that way, but I'm just wondering what else.
Yeah,
yeah, I can certainly follow up with you and get back with you.
yeah, so a lot of these clinics here, you know, like CSS is their heroin clinic, so they're taking care of these, you know, chronically sick folks that are SPMI diagnoses, you know, so they're doing a lot of case management. They're having to run groceries and do appointments and things like that for those folks through case management. There's some older adult team ones out of Mike Meyer that they can't have clients there, and so they're working out of the office. It's like that is their primary duty, is out of office. So those are the folks that I heard from that were like, hey, these car things are a real issue for us. Like, we have to go search these out. We're spending so much time out of our day. You know, if we're not proactive about scheduling, if we have somebody that comes in and has a crisis or needs something that we weren't expecting, then they're using that time where they should be going out to that client and they're spending it trying to locate cars. That's such a simple, I mean, that shouldn't be a problem. Is what I.
So what about Redmond? How's that one functioning now that we've got that whole Redmond campus going on?
Yeah, I don't know that the car situation is as bad in Redmond. I mean, they, you know, yeah, it's primarily downtown.
It's
And it's
downtown.
primarily, primarily downtown, which is, our intensive adult services team, our intensive forensic team, our ACT team, our host team, our homeless outreach team, our CSS team. These are our intensive adult services that are doing probably 90% of their work is community-based. Our crisis team is also really community-based. However, their cars are adequate. Actually, they have parking at the stabilization center and the public safety campus.
Yeah.
We would get CSS more cars. Like, we would use our money to do that. We just don't have a place to park them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, staff barely have a place to park downtown. So we were thrilled about this recommendation because we need out of the box thinking around the car situation downtown. And this is a really creative way, and I hope we're able to figure it out because it's a huge barrier for those intensive teams.
I mean, we're doing that whole parking study, you know, downtown parking study that's been going on, and there's.
Still take down Worrell Park.
No. But you know, there's some movement on that. They're gonna they're gonna add some additional spaces and things. I don't know if how much they're gonna work on the fleet parking aspect of that. Is more, seemed to me it was much more about the public parking and the availability to try to get access to the buildings easier for the public, because those are our customers. We want to make it easier for those folks. So I don't know if that parking study will lend itself to anything. I mean, I wish Lee was here. He's way more knowledgeable about it than I am. But you know, parking down here has been kind of a hot topic for a long time, so.
But so many people, the parking lot here though it's really not full very often, honestly. I drive in almost
For
every day.
employees and staff, but if you look at
Right.
where the fleet is.
Right.
It is packed to the gills.
We're only allowed to park
Every
somewhere.
single one of those spots has a car in it.
Like
Almost
right.
guaranteed.
We can't, and staff can't just park anywhere either. So
Right,
it's like the
it's-
staff parking is designated, the fleet parking is designated, and the open spots that you're seeing are often the public spots, which is great. They
You mean
can
the
access.
visitor parking, yes.
Yeah,
And just to chime in on the parking study, that's a big part of what the parking study will do. Is kind of look holistically at the campus and how many spots do we have available? How often are fleet vehicles moving and not moving? We did some drone work earlier this year that kind of shows that. And then basically kind of reallocating the spots that we do have in the way that is the highest and best purpose. So I think I'm hopeful that we'll have more information, and I know facilities is going to engage across the board with departments on fleet specifically in utilization and parking needs and seasonal needs. So I think it's timely, and we'll know more as they kind of continue that work.
Back to the parking garage then. I guess I need to meet with Frank.
finally, just an observational, just kind of a list of these great methods that these highly productive folks were using. 9 times out of 10, it was in combination. They were using, you know, 3 or more of these simultaneously. They were kind of, we ranked them in order of how often we heard these topics come up through discussion. They're just, again, a different way that we can lend some information to other clinicians that are like, oh, wow, that's what they're doing. That's their magic. Oh, I can do that, or I've done that, but only on its own. So I just wanted to make sure that we gave that information to the department to then be able to pass on.
Well, one thing that stuck out to me on the scheduled dedicated time to focus on documentation, I think one thing that Aaron mentioned to me during the audit was that, you know, the clinicians that were really producing were able to really carve out that time, stick to it, hold to it as much as possible. But because our department is so service oriented that we really, most of the time, will really drop anything to go serve on behalf of a client. So if their client comes up in crisis, or if a community partner needs us, or like something, and which is all the time, which is all the time, that they'll shove off that documentation time that they had reserved to go do the client service, which I think speaks to the heart of the people that we have working for us.
Absolutely.
And the mission-driven staff that we have, and like we need to allow them the space and get some additional support so that those needs can get met while still allowing folks to get their work done. So it's a balance that we'll work on.
How did you identify the highly productive clinicians? Was it based on the old methodology of?
Yeah, it was based on the service hour tool. That was the data set that we had available to us, and that was kind of what they were being assessed on and evaluated as part of their, you know, ongoing duties. So yeah, that's how we identified those through discussions with the department too. We would, yeah, we would give Holly lists and she'd be like, yep, no, no. Why don't you try this one? Why don't you try that one? Yeah, the same with the kind of the other folks, the other side of the coin too, where the folks that were kind of struggling to meet some of those too. We use the same tool and the same hours and the same kind of approach as far as to try to figure out like what their barriers were, what were they struggling with, to see if there was some commonality there as well.
Well, and it's a balance in finding those people too, because sometimes your highest producers, while they may be knocking it out of the park in terms of productivity, like maybe they're not necessarily passing their data integrity audit. So they're not, you know, their notes maybe aren't really where they need to be. Like, so maybe some of their, you know, maybe their caseloads are through the roof and they're not managing that well. So we really wanted to find the people that were able to kind of do it all, which is a real challenge. And then for the under producers, I mean, there's a lot of really good reasons why some of those maybe aren't. They may be on a team like the homeless outreach team that doesn't do hardly any billable services because it's all pre-engagement work. And they oftentimes don't even get the full names of people they're working with, or can't put it in Epic because they don't have their date of birth, or, you know, so lots of anomalies like that I think Aaron and the team found a really great way to kind of find good representation from both groups to make sure it was a little bit more apples to apples.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what about the people that have actually go through that licensing? I know it's not a quick process. It takes a couple years.
Yeah.
How many people are now licensed in the program?
Yeah, I'd have to, I can get that for you, but we have quite a few.
Okay.
We have, I'm thinking it's like in the 40s or something.
Well, I thought it was up to 60 at one time.
Yeah.
Maybe they.
Are you thinking the drug and alcohol license?
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd have to go back and get that one, but we are consistently seeing that number grow and grow and grow. The stipend program really helped with that.
Yeah.
And so, but we also have, you know, professional licensure for counseling and for LC, like a licensed clinical social worker. So those are separate licensure tracks for master's level clinicians that also take years to get. And those licenses, only certain, like you can't do private insurance. A person that doesn't have a license can't bill private insurance if they don't have a license. So this is also where the caseload imbalance can come into play sometimes, is that only certain clinicians can take certain types of insurance if we actually want to get paid. Sometimes we have to make a decision as a department, like, well, this person needs help and we don't have anybody else to put in with.
So you have to
We're
send
gonna
the
eat
person
that
that's
cost.
not licensed.
Yeah, and we're just gonna have to eat that cost. And so those are decisions we have to make internally, but sometimes caseloads can get unbalanced for that reason as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of factors that go into that.
There is.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to find out the really licensing numbers. Okay,
Yeah, I can get you.
I'm
that.
sure they have.
Yeah, I can get you that by the end of the day.
Do you find a lot of the turnover, are they going to like private practice? and those
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of-
Oh, man, don't get me started on that topic. Yes, I mean, this is a huge challenge for
Keeping-
community mental health.
Right.
Like, we
Because
are a training ground
Right.
If they
oftentimes.
need supervision hours.
They get free
and then once they
supervision
get
with that.
Supervision hours.
And
And there's a huge need for private practice around also, so there's,
well, Yes and no. The panel opened up for private practice a couple years ago, and we have about 300 or so private practice of people that can serve. The problem is they don't have the same requirements that the community mental health program has, but they can actually develop wait lists. They can actually say, I'm only gonna see 10 people on my caseload or 20 people on my
Right.
caseload, and I'm not gonna see any more than that, whereas we can't do that. So what happens is oftentimes they're setting their limits.
Right.
People are on wait lists, they're not able to access services, so then guess where they come? They come back this direction to us,
Where they can get service.
where they can get services, which explodes our caseloads, and I mean, which is fine, we're here, we're gonna serve people that need help.
Right.
But there's a disparity, a pretty big one, and it is a challenge for the community mental health program to provide free supervision, to train people up, with, you know, the services that we provide, and then have them immediately get licensed and need to go to private practice, which happens pretty regularly.
Like 99% of the time, right?
It's huge.
Yes.
So it's an area we're watching. I think if we had a bit more parity in terms of what was expected from private practice,
Right.
we wouldn't see that phenomenon
Right.
happen quite so rapidly. But we're working on that with the state.
Yeah, that's just a challenge.
Jody, any questions from online? We couldn't see you while the screen was on.
I don't know if I really have any questions, but I'd seen in the management response to it, you know, how, especially with the, oh gosh, like the efficiency, like how it had to be so validating to staff to see that they knew they were spending, you know, 3/4 of their time with patient care, and yet the reports they were getting was 1/3 of that. And I think that's just pretty incredible. It had to just feel emotionally, you know, huge for the staff members that were involved in this whole process to see that their work was being validated. And that now you are going to look at a new way to measure the efficiency and caseload balancing. So
Yeah,
that's
thank
pretty
you.
amazing.
It was that that's honestly, it was one of the reasons I think we were excited to have the audit, because, you know, while audits can feel really scary and intimidating, what I was pretty confident would be revealed was this phenomenon of, that's, it's just not getting into Epic. And so it is very validating to staff. I know our staff work on behalf of clients all day, every day. So it was really good to see an outside perspective validate that for our leadership as well as staff.
Yeah.
Well, Holly, thank you again. I mean, Holly did a video for the time study. That department gets time studies thrown at them, you know, kind of frequently, and they're kind of, you know, cringy. But Holly actually did a video to try to persuade staff to do this terrible time study that we asked them to do. And so she's been nothing but supportive. So I just want to thank you again.
Well, thank you for this. I mean, we really felt this was a wonderful process to go through. It was collaborative the entire way through. It was validating. We learned a lot, and we have some improvements that we now have a strategic way to go about making those. So we appreciate it.
So do you think your turnover is going to stay up at 15% then?
Well, you know, one of the big,
I mean,
some of these audit findings will help us, like in terms of the efficiency, like the smart phrases and all of that, that's one area. But, you know, one of the other big areas we're looking at as a department is how we internally reduce administrative burden. We're working on it at a state level, that's taking forever. But internally, like, we're gonna have to make some decisions about, you know, how we've interpreted OARs, what our assessment process looks like. We have got to reduce this for clinicians, or we're going to continue to bleed them to private practice.
Right.
So it is one of the reasons I wanted to take this job, so that I could work on this and really make this work easier for clinicians to do, at least administratively. So that's going to be our biggest focus going into next year.
I know, I just read that last year we had the most suicides ever in the country, the most. So definitely we need your help.
Yeah, we need to be able to not be stuck in, you know, documentation hell while we're serving people.
Waiting for a car.
Yeah, we have a car to go get them.
So maybe we can do those stacking card things. I mean, that was pretty cool. Or either I'm parking garage.
Great levels.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Maybe we
just
go
press the
under,
button.
maybe we go under Pearl Park.
well.
Maybe underground. You can leave the park there and then go. It might cost a little bit, but you want to figure out.
We can do a parking garage out there somewhere. These, I'm sure is listening somewhere.
Having a heart attack.
Yeah.
All right, is there any other comments or questions? No. The next item is.
Yeah.
Thank
policy
Thank you so
justice.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, you're leaving us
Yes,
now?
I am, sorry.
She's the director of health services.
Yeah.
She's got a lot.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Holly.
It's justice court.
Right.
Short one, Aaron.
It's a short one, yeah. So we got one follow-up done this quarter, Justice Court, cat handling. 100% completed for the 2 recommendations that we gave them. But this was no small feat. I want to definitely give Jody, the court administrator, her kudos. As she reported in the response, 6 months to complete 48 pages of reconciliations over 24,402 collection accounts to the 38,936 court system accounts. So no small feat, right? That was a lot of back and forth checking. So the fact that it took her only 6 months is actually pretty impressive, but they should be commended for getting it done before our follow-up date. So kudos, please.
Oh,
Please send my kudos to Jody. So yeah. So that's it.
Any comments on
That
that?
was the one, yeah.
That's great. Let's see, competence, professional education and quality assurance.
Yeah. We'll move on to our ongoing training. Once Zoom catches up to my clicks, there we go. So we skipped it last audit committee. We had a lot of other things going on, audit plan and presentation by Elizabeth, all kinds of great stuff going on. So if you remember back 6 months ago, we talked about kind of the overall yellow book concepts of ethics, independence, professional judgment. So today we're going to be talking about the next couple chapters. There we go. Which is competence, professional education, quality control, and peer review. So we'll start with competence. So I grabbed some, move this out of the way. So the top is the definition right out of the yellow book of what competence is. Then I also grabbed Merriam-Webster's definition of competence. They marry each other very well, but the intent there is that competent auditors are better equipped to develop their audit plan. They can define the audit objectives, scope, and procedures, taking into consideration things like industry standards and regulation and best practices. So having a competent audit team is key, and that's why it's part of our standards. They also go on to show some indicators of competence. So when you create kind of an audit program, selection of those auditors who's gonna do the work is key. Having those technical knowledge and skills that fit the audit objective is very important. Yellow Book is also kind of assigned roles for competence. They're kind of going in hierarchical. CAEs kind of have the highest level of competence. Then supervisory auditors would be the next, and then me, the non-supervisory auditor, we have the least amount of competence on the team.
Did you just say that about yourself?
I did, but that's how Yellow Book looks at me. But anyways, I just thought that was.
We have a lot of competence in our office.
We have a lot of
Flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. It gives us flexibility. But if we don't, if we we really have an audit objective that we are not competent in an area and we acknowledge it, our alternative is that we can use a specialist to do that work. So like for a payroll audit or something like that, where we are maybe not as strong in that area, we can get a payroll auditor that really knows what they're doing. As kind of an alternative to still get the work done, but not within our office. So continuing education, right? So in the audit profession, as well as everybody else's profession, regulation standards and best practices are constantly changing, constantly evolving. We need to be on top of whatever the cutting edge thing is in finance or whatever. Whatever's going on in Southern River. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. So having that professional education, make sure that we're staying up to date on all these latest changes. And it also provides us some specialized knowledge in areas like IT or construction auditing, or election audits, which are coming up on our next audit plan. So those are other ways that we can gain some specialized knowledge in areas that will help us in the future. So for quality control, we have internal quality control. That's through using our standards, using Yellow Book and the methodology to kind of make sure that have consistent audit processes, and that gains us quality within the audit work. There's also review and supervision. So there's also a review process that's established within our office. This section of the Yellow Book is actually undergoing kind of an update. They issued a draft update in January, largely on systemizing this quality control piece. But it hasn't been instituted yet, right? No Yellow Book update yet. Yeah. And then peer review, right? All eyes on our reports. That's where we bear our soul and let all the other auditors look at our audit work. And they assess the quality of our audit work. This ensures objectivity and provides validation that it's effective in meeting industry standards. And it also does provide some valuable feedback for continuous improvement, right? Somebody else's audit shop may do things a little differently and can recommend some great.
When are we scheduled for the next one?
What's that?
When are we scheduled for the next one?
A year
Next,
from now.
yeah, a year from today, actually, yeah, next September. We're on the clock. So that was a really quick overview of those two chapters. The highlights, so to speak. Any questions on Yellow Book 3 or 4 and 5? Thank you.
Thank you. Audit Committee Survey.
All right, so now I can figure out this.
Should be there. No, maybe show all windows. I know I opened it earlier. There it is. Yeah, it's been really delayed. I don't know if it's our connection or if it's just the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you?
There it is. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh,
There it is.
here it is. Okay.
Yay.
All right, so it's about time to do our audit committee survey. So every few years, we do a reflective survey of audit committee members to make sure that the committee's working as best as it can, to make sure everyone's having a meaningful experience and to improve the effectiveness of the committee. I don't know, has anyone here participated in the survey in the past? All right, well, the survey has 46 questions, so it's a little long.
Oh, then I haven't.
It includes questions about the composition and quality of the committee, understanding risks of the organization, processes and procedures of the committee, oversight of financial reporting, and oversight of the internal audit functions. So just to give you an example of some of those questions. So, and then you'll be asked to rate the quality based on strongly disagree to strongly agree. Some of the questions are, some of the statements which you might be asked to agree with would be, the audit committee understands and considers significant risks faced by the organization, including management's process for identifying risks and mitigating risks. Or another one might be members promote open dialogue, which allows for in-depth discussion. Many of the topics, the questions that come up are items that we've addressed in the past by including them in the agendas that you get on the board. So a lot of them will be these kinds of communications that are at the end of the agenda. That's the kind of things that they'll be asked. This slide shows our results in the past. So I can see the first survey happened in 2005 and the last one in 2020. Our overall average has increased from 3.6 to 4.21. But then on the right side, you can see sort of the overall by section of how those scores have changed over time. So we had some notable changes in 2020. So one of the statements that dropped was creating a succession plan for committee members and the chair. That dropped from 3.83 to 3. Notice giving committee members notice of illegal activity or breaches of fiduciary duty dropped from 4.2 to 3.8. But one that increased was committee takes action on repeat comments to ensure resolution increased. That increased from 3.5 to 4. If anyone's interested, let me know and I can share the 2020 results with you. So once we hear back from you, and we'll share the results of the survey with the committee, and the committee has an opportunity to make changes. So some things that we've done in the past have been increasing our trainings, adding communications to agenda, and scheduling field trips. So this is how the process is going to work. So after the meeting, by the middle of the month, I'll send you the survey link. You'll get it by email. Then I'll be hoping that you'll complete the survey. I'm going to put a deadline of it October 31st, just so that I can make sure everyone have a cutoff, so they don't just come trickling in all fall. I'll send out reminders also that we're waiting on those. Then Erin and I will take a look and synthesize results for from the survey. And at the next committee meeting, we'll share those with you and have a discussion and start thinking about any changes we want to make. So that's it. Does anyone have questions about the survey?
I like 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll email that to everyone.
That's it.
That's it.
Updates and other items.
All right, I think Nick was going to give us the administration update, but I don't know which of you is.
Can lead off. All right. Since the committee last met, we obviously recognized David's retirement from Elizabeth. We also, our outgoing solid waste director, Chad Santola, retired at the end of June, and our incoming solid waste director, Tim Brownell, has taken off his incoming hat. You'll recall that they served in a dual capacity for a nice period of time. So Tim is now officially just the solid waste director, and I think enjoying that role. Also,
Hard to tell the truth.
yeah,
We're citing our bill.
yeah.
Well, first one cited 30 years. Okay.
Project ahead of him. Also, as the committee last met, Sheriff Shane Nelson has announced his intention to retire and that he will not seek re-election at the end of his term in January of 2025. So we'll see candidates that are interested in filing for that seat have the ability to do that starting in September, and that window runs through March. And then if fewer than 3 candidates file for that seat, that contest will move to the November election from the spring election.
It will move.
That's what the clerk's website says. If
Really?
there's fewer, if less than 3 candidates file.
Can you say that again, Whitney?
Yep.
Will you repeat that?
Yep. So for the May 21st, 2024 primary election, candidates can begin to file in September through March. And then if fewer than 3 candidates file, the contest will move to the November general election.
That's it. Anything to add there?
No, fewer than 3. So can they win it in the spring if there's a more for running and somebody takes 50%? Do they have to have 50% in order to win?
The website doesn't get in, that sounds, we should verify that with Steve, but the website doesn't get into that level of detail, do you know?
No, I was
Yeah.
asking you.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's lasted pretty long for a show, so, it's not unusual for somebody to step down after, but it's 2.5 terms, something like that. So,
A long career here locally in the town.
So more audit committee updates, or audit updates from us. We have on our update, the continuity of operations report, which we actually shared with you at the last audit committee meeting, but it was still a June report since this is June through August, if included in this update. And then we also released the behavioral health report, which we just talked about. Aaron and I are both working on cash handling audits. So we're looking at property and facilities and the district attorney's office. And so those will be out very soon. Reports are written, we just share them with management and get their response and then release those out to you. And then we have 2 performance audits that are in planning phases. One on equity of wages and benefits and another on compensatory time. So we're just getting started with those and just starting to meet with staff to learn a little bit more about these areas. We have not done any non-audit work, so that's been minimal. We released the Justice Court cash handling follow-up that we also just talked about. And I think the sheriff's office is going to be due pretty soon.
Yeah, sheriff's office follow-up is due today, I believe. And then the vacation and sick leave audit follow-up will be shortly thereafter as well. So we got 2 follow-ups on the horizon.
And then we've had a lot of administrative time over this. That's past period, both with just the transition with the internal auditor. So David getting ready for me to come and me getting up to speed. So you can see in our hours breakdown below that we're a bit over on admin time and a bit under it, but I think that should be expected in this kind of time. So
I wanted to say something because I had that issue happen where I went to the transfer station, paid cash and did not get a receipt. So last time it really bothered me because I extrapolated how much cash could be pocketed. So I went there the other day and there was a huge sign that says you should get a receipt. I mean, like you couldn't drive up without seeing about 4 signs. So thank you. I'm really happy that happened actually really fast. So
I can't take credit for that.
I don't know who did it, but somebody.
Gotta be solid waste management.
Somebody did it, and the one sign looked a little old, like they might have picked it up, but it was good to see him.
It's there.
Yeah, no, I was really happy, so.
Great.
Okay, so Tim did that.
Yeah.
Good, great.
Give him all the credit.
Okay, I will thank him for doing that.
It's an important thing that you pointed out.
Well, I was just like shocked. No, like, I don't think he knew who it was, and like, going like. Oh. Anyway, yeah, you can't miss it now.
Good.
That's all we've got for updates. Oh, we also are, we need to recruit for a new committee member, so that will be something we'll be working on over the next months.
Other business.
I'll just give an update and refer to it earlier. That's why Janet Kane isn't here. So our external auditors, Moss Adams, are on site this week for the interim field work for the financial audit. This is their 2nd year of the audit and they're doing a great job. This year, they're digging in a little more, last year is the first year. They really have to document all the internal controls and look at our policies and of course do the full financial audit. This year, they're refining their own notes and their own documentation. So they're digging down a little more, asking a little more deeper questions to explain about, clarify roles and responsibilities. But those meetings are going fine so far. And, some areas are pretty quick, other areas they dive in a little more, but they'll be here all week. And then again, we're going through this process for a couple months, few months. So, but we're at the beginning phases and staff's working. In fact, that's why Janet's at her desk. She's working really hard on trying to complete reports in time this year.
And hopefully we'll have their presentation at our next committee meeting.
It was good to see Kevin yesterday out there. I mean, so I know last year even with the service district and but there was like timing was, and I know they're working hard to rectify some of those timing issues, but they personally had out there last year, so it's great. Any other business?
Oh, I just have a question for Robert. When will we know the health fund number? Will it go through the end of this month or is it like even longer than that?
Which health, like the
Well,
year ending fund balance? from
Right,
last
fund
year?
balance from last year.
Yeah.
Employee benefit, that one?
Mhm.
Yeah, we probably have a somewhat good idea now. It won't be final until say October. but
Okay.
It's getting closer to a final number.
Okay,
We'll have it, you'll see when we do the August financial report. Again, it's preliminary, but that'll be as of August. So I'll see by then if I can make sure it's updated to the most recent
great.
for the end of the year.
I'll have to thank Shannon. Him when getting the signs back up. I was very impressed.
It's impressive.
Well, because I was not good. Because we cannot use our pharmacy without using a credit card. They will not take cash to the pharmacy. For like $3 or something. Anyway,
And I mean, next meeting's December 8th. So please put that on your calendar, exclamation point. And any other items before we adjourn?
so Elizabeth, we're gonna get some names in for the audit committee, or are we putting that out? or something?
I need to talk to the commissioners about how you all do
Are these external community members then? Is that
a
what?
community member, yeah. So we'll keep track of this off.
Okay, great.
All right, adjourned.
So you did a fabulous job.
Thanks. Right here, see, there we go. That had nothing to do with any of that.
Whoa. The really good news is there's ice down here in Michigan.